This is Rachel Mills with Make and Create Drawing Skills. Today we're going to be working on portraits and faces. So before we really start into anything, I would like to go over proportions, so facial proportions. So if you draw a face, most faces are kind of an oval, like some of your faces are going to be a bit more round, some of them are a bit more square, but either way you have a face. So let's say this is your face. There's a bit of a chin, roughly that. You should really be looking at a face if you're drawing a face, if you're drawing a specific face. Even when you're not really drawing a specific face, it's good to look at several different faces and maybe combine them into a whole new set of features. But so you have some kind of reference is always very good. So if you split the face down the centre, let's say you're drawing a face that's looking at you straight on, if you're drawing a face from like the side or something, then that centre line changes. Or even just drawing a face from the actual side view, your centre line changes again. So, if you split your face, I'm just going to do that again actually. If you split your face in half, and if you split the head in half, basically in half. That might not look quite in half, just because this starts to become a bit smaller than this. But yes, if you split that in half, that is where you're going to place your eyes. And if you split that in half, from your eyes to your chin, that is where you'll place your nose. And if you split your nose, that line in half from your chin, that is where you'll get your mouth. So you might ask, how do I know how big my nose is or how wide my eyes are? Because now you've got everything placed on the right horizontal line, but how do you place everything right in the vertical? So different eyes and different faces are going to have different proportions, of course. Maybe some people are actually going to have a really high forehead and it's a bit more than half where their eyes are. You need to keep these things in mind, be able to look at them and everything. Also, when your head's at a different angle, let's say you're looking down, then that's where your eyes are going to be. And you're going to have a lot more forehead visible. And your nose is going to be really, really short over here and everything's going to be foreshortened. But to be able to do that, you can look at references, or you can remember foreshortening principles, which we have not gone over as of yet. So, if you draw a line from the tip of a nose to the corner of an eye, that's often a good proportion. Not everyone does follow that proportion. But when you study someone, you should look, okay, how wide is their mouth? Okay, so here's their pupil, let's say. And the middle of their pupil coincides with the corner of their mouth actually, because they have quite a wide mouth. So it's about measuring these sorts of things, comparing all the features together, and that's how you get proportion. Another thing to remember is your neck and your ears. Your ears often come out from the eye and end at the nose. That's a regular proportion, that's a common proportion. But again, everyone has different sorts of ear proportions and things, so you should always study. So you should always study them and look at your reference. Another thing with your neck, it can often come perhaps the corner of your eye. Oftentimes your neck is a lot thicker than you think it needs to be. A lot of people I've seen draw quite thin necks, which can be glamorised or cartoonish, which you may want. But for today, let's focus on drawing realistically. I'm going to add the collarbone if you feel like it, but I'm not going to get too fancy, just a sort of bust. And for hair, I think we should briefly touch on that. A lot of people I've seen, they draw just hair shape, just hair lacking any shape, and they just draw lines to make hair. Now, that doesn't really give your hair any sort of body dimension or shape like real hair does have, because real hair kind of comes about in locks. So they're all kind of following each other. Some split from each other, from those, and some sort of follow them. And they all kind of follow the head and lay on the head like that. And you don't see every single individual line. Some areas I'm actually going to make a little bit darker to sort of give that hair dimension, especially near the part. That's always a good place to make a little bit darker. And then your part itself can be a bit lighter. I also almost forgot to add my eyebrows. They're usually a bit thicker up front, and then as they go back they get a little bit thinner. But of course it depends on your eyebrows that you're looking at and the eyebrows that you're drawing. So now would be a great opportunity to draw a face in proportion, just very, very simply, not any sort of details or anything, but just sort of measure in your head. Measure out your face, splitting it in half, splitting it in half again, putting all the features down, and just having that sort of note for yourself. You could even write wee notes so you can remember, like halfway eye line, and things like that, just so you can remember the lesson. So now that you've done that, we're going to do some studies of noses and lips and things. So when we do our lips, eyes and noses and just features and everything, so when you are drawing these features and everything, you should have, look at them very, very well, and you should draw them as shapes. So you've got the line of the lip. Oftentimes they sort of dip down. Is it darker in the corners? Many upper lips are darker in shade than bottom lips. And they have these sort of lines in them a lot of the time, don't they? So if you want to make sure your lip has dimension, it can be useful to add your shading, your value, using that sort of motion. And a lot of lips are a little bit darker underneath that chin lip line part. These are actually going to be quite simplistic lips. I'm not going to be getting too wild into them, but I encourage you to go a lot more detailed and a lot more finer tuned than what I'm doing. Be sure to get a good range of values. No matter what media you're using. And many lips have that sort of Cupid's bow, I believe it's called. So just be sure to actually look at the features that you're drawing. And with noses, it's often very much about the shape. Noses can be quite difficult. But if you pay attention to these sort of basic shapes and don't give it a sort of circle nostril effect, look like a little pig nose, then you should be absolutely fine. If you also notice, under noses are often a little bit more shadowed. So it's not so much the nose that I'm working on, but now around the nose, which then gives it dimension. And for eyes. These are just simple studies. You don't have to put it together in a person, but that will be sort of the next step. So eyes. if you actually shade the whites of the eyes a little bit, that is how you make some beautiful luminous eyes that have some real shape to them and are absolutely wonderful. I might have gone a little dark with that, but I can always go back with my eraser or rubber and clean that up a bit. And when I'm doing the actual eyelashes, if you notice, I'm not going right up like this, but they're at an angle. And they kind of flick out. I'm not going to make them too big. And over here, they hardly flick out at all. And my lower lashes, you see there's a sort of waterline here. I'm going to make underneath my waterline, and they're just very, very small wee things. I'm going to try to get that texture within the actual iris and really, really bring my dark, dark values in the pupil. Another thing I'm going to do is actually make a wee eyebrow for it, as well as this line, the lid line, and some sort of values around it. Because if you actually look at an eye, many times the socket is a bit sunk in, because if we look at skulls, of course, they have that sunken socket, which when you put skin and muscles and things, is still sort of visible beneath the skin. There. And for eyebrows, of course, like I said before, they're a bit thicker up front, then they get a bit thinner as they go. And I'm just going to make sure I have that little tear duct on the corner of my eye, which is a great thing to have. Makes things look a lot more realistic. Many eyes actually have that little bit of shine in the corner too. It's that little bit of reflected light. A little bit in the tear duct maybe. And there we are. My eye. So now that you're done with that, my final challenge to you is to do a self-portrait. And I'm going to challenge you to do a self-portrait in front of the mirror, which can be a bit difficult because of course you're moving to draw yourself. If you don't have a mirror, you can use a photo and everything, but I'm assuming most of you have a mirror. So you'll be using all the tools that you've used here, basically drawing your face shape and then plugging in your proportions and studying your proportions, because you might not be exactly right in the middle. You might be a bit more, you might be a bit less. Children proportions as well can also be a bit more smooshed because children haven't fully grown, haven't fully lengthened out. So just study your proportions very well. So that will be absolutely amazing. I can't wait to see all those. Hope you've had a good week and hope you have a lovely continuing week, following week. Keep drawing and stay safe.